What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Tribe of Millionaires podcast from GoBundance. I'm your host, Jamie Gruber. Today, wow, did we go deep on short-term rental and identity and so many other things with my incredible guest. I'd not met her before. We exchanged a few emails and texts, but it was great to connect with her. She's a doctor. She's a short-term rental expert. She's doing a lot of cool stuff. Her name is Rachel Gainsbrugh. She's part of the GoBundance Women's Tribe, obviously. And what I didn't expect to do in this podcast was get really deep on the specifics of short-term rental, how she runs her niche business within short-term rental, what we call a blue ocean strategy that she implemented there, which to me was fascinating. And we dove deep on that. So you're going to get a lesson. If you're even thinking about short-term rental, or even if you're in the space, you're going to get lessons and nuggets and insider information that she drops in this podcast. So check that out. On top of that, we had a nice discussion about the fact that, look, she's a doctor. She's gone through a lot of education to get to this place of being a doctor, but she's also built a significant business in the short-term rental space, but it holds both those roles still, and, kind of why. And we talked a little bit about identity and how that may be a factor in her maintaining the W-2 at this point. It was interesting. In fact, I went on my little soapbox. So you can hear some of my thoughts as we go through that part. I'm glad she indulged me, because she's probably like, yeah, look, man, I figured out life. You don't have to tell me, but I felt inclined anyway to give my thoughts. So enjoy every bit of this. We go deep on a lot of topics. I mean, think about insurance money in the STR game. Think about that for a second and wait to hear what she talks about. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, like the video, drop a comment, let us know what you think about this incredibly inspiring individual, Rachel Gainsbrugh. Rachel, welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh my goodness, Jamie. Thank you so much for having me. What an honor. I just appreciate you creating this space for us to just connect on a whole other level. I know it's usually business, but yep. With your podcast, the value that I see here is that we're covering a whole range of things. And so I so appreciate the value that you're sharing to others who are listening. So thank you so much for having me.
That means a lot. And it's cool for me because I get to meet everybody in GoBundance by doing this podcast, right? Like, it's just my ability I can connect to everybody. I know everybody and I love knowing everybody. So I appreciate you saying that. Let's start with you. I mentioned a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to dive into each of them, I'm sure, as we go through, but just kind of give me the story of you from where you're from through what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So little girl from Haiti, one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere, came to this country. Parents did all the sacrificial things to make sure that I got the best education possible in one of the best countries possible. And so with that being said, I didn't want to take their sacrifice in vain. They did have status. It may be a poor country, but they did have status and all of the things. But coming to this country, they had to start all over. But what they did instill in me is that education is the key. Education, and faith. That's another thing. Education and faith. And so I went down that path. I really excelled in education, got the straight A's, went on and got my doctorate. Everything is great, but I had zero financial literacy education. So walked away from graduate school with a boatload of debt, student loans, and I realized, oh my goodness, this is crushing. And so worked really hard. My husband and I, we went through it. Okay, Jamie, we went through it. It was hard out here on the streets. But when we finally were seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and paid it off, we determined, okay, well, what do we do next? And so real estate investing was something that we ventured into after paying off our student loans.
So real estate investing, you're in short-term rentals now. Is that where you started? Or did you go right into that game? And how long ago was that? Give me an idea of when did you start in real estate and what did you start with in real estate?
Okay, so we started in 2019, believe it or not, and it completely accelerated because of short-term rentals. So we spent about 2 years of doing the podcast consumption, procrastination, just all of the bigger pockets, all of the things, just consuming, pull the trigger on short-term rentals, because for us, that would have accelerated our pathway to freedom compared to all of the other investing. And no offense, my long-term rental folks, and no offense, my multifamily syndicators, I looked at all of it. And the only numbers that really made sense to us at our phase of life was short-term rentals. And we started there. We're not looking back, Jamie. I don't know, you changed my mind. Someone would have to come up and change my mind, but we're not looking back.
I think every one of us that have been in the long-term game are being changed over. It's like taxis versus Uber, right? Forever it was like Uber. Like I remember living in Boston, you couldn't even get an Uber at the airport. It wasn't allowed. You had to have a taxi medallion. Good luck today. Uber's taken over. It's the same thing here. Long-term, long-term. This short-term game, like, everybody I know in long-term is starting to touch short-term, me included. We're starting to dive into it now. We're looking to diving into it now. But first off, where did you go? Haiti to where? Where did your family migrate to?
Miami, Florida.
Miami. Is that where you are today?
Today I'm in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia area. Yeah. So after grad school, got a really cush position with a big teaching institution in Georgia. And so we moved there.
Gotcha. So your short-term rentals, from what I've read about, at least one of them, what I know of, is just like a house in a neighborhood, right? Kind of thing. Or at least maybe I read that wrong, but tell me about where are you investing and how do you analyze, like what short-term rentals are you going after? What are the dynamics you're looking for?
Yeah, so I'm looking at a number of things. So some of the portfolio are houses and neighborhoods. Some of the portfolio are in vacation rental locations. So the Poconos, mountain areas, the Smokies of Tennessee, houses in Georgia nearby in really nice neighborhoods, as well as we're doing a new construction on 30A, Scenic 30A, which is the Florida Panhandle area near Destin and Panama City Beach, right in between. And so it's a variety, right? And that's just because we just keep looking around and evaluating the numbers. I'm a very spreadsheet oriented girl. So I look at the numbers, and if a deal comes across my desk that fits into my, I guess, my pillar of who I want to host, then I will look at the deal. So if there's a really flashy high-rise penthouse condo, I'll send it over to a friend. But what we invest in are single family homes, 5 to 8 bedrooms that host multi-generational families with children and pets. So I get laser focused on, will this fit my avatar? And my avatar happens to be myself. I'm traveling, my parents. I always have an entourage. That random cousin is coming, and so everyone comes when we get together as a family. We're really big on that, and so that is the experience that we want to convey with our business.
How do you market that? Is that just by the dynamic of the property being 5 to 8 bedrooms? Is it just that those folks find, multi-generational with children and pets, find that because that's what they're looking for? Or is there a way that you're able to sort of tap into that avatar, that market that you're trying to get into?
Yeah, so they find us, and we're niched, right? So we're not going to be that smaller, unit that a lot of people typically have access to. So our folks know us and we know them. They see us and we see them. And so we just put it out there, sleeps 16. Hello. Yeah. That whittles it all the way down, right? Sure. To the 1 or 2 properties. And then another thing is we do have a B2B line, a business to business line, where we are working, and I would say that this is my superpower, we're working directly with insurance companies as well in the neighborhoods, because if a smaller family is displaced from their homes due to a flood, a fire, or any of those catastrophic situations to the home, they get placed in a hotel for a while or an apartment for a while. But how many larger families need to be placed somewhere? So one of the last guests that we hosted in the neighborhood, she said, imagine cooking for a family of 10 in a hotel. Although the insurance did give them 2 hotel rooms, but that's not going to cut it. Cooking for a family of 10 in a hotel is not fun. And so we have really niched ourselves as the provider for housing for these larger families who it's, and the insurance, the game plan is to place them in a like type of home. Yeah. And so they may be in an 8-bedroom home, but our 5-bedroom home will fit that, dynamic and that like kind of accommodation for them.
You're creating I got a page full of questions now, and I'm going to make sure. So I got to set this is for my brain and people listening. I think this is significant, and you've got all these different nuances that I want to dive into, but just let's create the framework. How many total units are you operating right now? Do you own right now?
So I have a mixed business. So I own and I manage for others.
Okay.
So own 7 right now and
Okay.
manage 11 for others, as well as manage for ourselves because we do arbitrage.
That
So
was the
we
other question. Yeah. So you are self-managed, or you have a management business that you run, correct? What does that
yes.
look like in the short-term rental? Like when you're managing for others, as a multifamily guy, I'll pay, 6% to a management company. I have a feeling that it's more than 6% for you to manage the intensity of an Airbnb, like frequent guest turns, cleaning, all that stuff. What does a management company charge in the Airbnb space?
And that's a great question, Jamie, because there are layers of it. And that's what I love about short-term rentals. There are layers, right? Do you need me to just manage the guest communications and the revenue side of it, and the
Sure.
calendar? If that is the case, I'm charging about 15% for that. Okay. And
Yeah.
because, I am changing your pricing on a day-to-day basis. Of course, I use an AI algorithm to change the pricing and the fluctuations. So you'll still net more with me than if you did it yourself, if you're not in there every day. However, if you have me managing the property as well, the whole asset, as a short-term rental manager, it's about 25 to 30%. So I'm managing the cleaners, the maintenance, just to turn around, making sure the guest really has the best experience. But the difference than a property manager is I'm not managing major projects. I'm not going to necessarily order the guy to come and put a fence in your backyard or that. So my guest experience, any maintenance that's needed that impacts guest experience is where the focus is. And I have eyes on the property, or my team has eyes on the property multiple times. So always alerting the homeowner, hey, this probably needs to be fixed. We need to, bring this up to par, or, such and such happened, and so on and so forth.
So your standard client, is it like this? Like you're searching Airbnb, you see a 9 or 8 bedroom house in, Destin, Florida, and it happens to be a summer home or a vacation home for a family that lives in, Michigan or whatever the case may be. They say, hey, you know what? With this Airbnb thing, I guess why not rent it out? We only use it a few weeks a year. You find them, they find you, and you essentially, in a way, co-host. Is that the right term?
Well, co-hosting is more of that 15% where I kind of just manage a portion of it, And so the full short-term rental management, and, you have to have a realtor's license in some states to do that because you're required to be a brokerage to hold money. So
Yep.
trust accounting. So that's a little bit more of the full service management. That makes sense.
Got
So
it.
there are 3 ways to host, right? So there are landlord owner. So we're actually doing all 3. So landlord owner, okay. So we own the property, we dress it up really pretty, stick it on the platform, and we're renting it out as a short-term rental. There's arbitrage. Arbitrage is where I work with other investors who say, hey, Rachel, aren't you the luxury short-term rental girl? I said, yes, I am. Can you help me, get my property set up as a short-term rental, but I don't want to do anything to it. And, so that individual, I have an option. Do you want me to rent it out unfurnished? I'll rent it out for a year lease. I'll dress it up, and then I'll rent it as a short-term rental. I will pay a little bit higher than you're expecting to get paid, a couple $100 higher, but I can set it up. I will always have eyes on the property and so on and so forth. However, if you want to be a little bit more hands-on, you try it out, you set it up, but then you realize, hey, all of this guest communication is overwhelming. All of these turnarounds, communicating with the cleaners is overwhelming. Maintaining the calendar, optimizing, pricing optimization is huge. Optimizing the listing. So that's the third way that we host as a co-host / property manager. So that is a revenue share. I call it a revenue share. So my cut will be somewhere around 15% to 25%, depending on the level of effort. But you pretty much have full control of the property. It's not under an annual lease with me or anything like that. We can do a contract. I'll work with you for a year with a 90-day exit or a 30-day exit, whatever that may be.
Now, so the 7 that you have, are those 7 that you own, or is that a mix of own and lease?
7 that I own.
That you own. The 11 that you manage, what does that look like? Are you leasing any of those right now, or?
I'm leasing 3 of those right now.
Got it. Very interesting. All right. Now, the other 2 quick questions, I think they're quick, that I had on this is, you've got sort of destination and you've got neighborhood. Do you see better performance in either or I guess like, what's the difference as far as what you're seeing as from a result standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, they perform both really, really well. But I will tell you, my destinations during their peak seasons, they are insane in terms of their performance, right? But then we have shoulder season and then we have lower season. Okay. So say a property made 42,000, true story, in July. Okay. And then, it'll go all the way down to maybe December 4,000, 3,000, right?
Sure.
However, the neighborhoods, it's going to be more like a steady 11,000 all the way through.
Got it.
Maybe
Interesting.
9,000, but it's more steady. So there's a lack of seasonality with the neighborhoods. Okay. Yeah. But with the destinations, you do have some seasonality, but still great performance overall.
Why does somebody rent an Airbnb in a neighborhood?
Yeah, we touched that a little bit early. It's the insurance. Number one, insurance clients. So say you're displaced, and it's incredible how many issues are happening to homes. So I feel as though perhaps the fact that we're working from home more, we're using the plumbing more, and we're flooding our houses more, or we're just doing something to our homes. And I do get every month someone has a flood or someone's house caught on fire or something is happening all the time. And so just being linked up with the Chamber of Commerce and being linked up with, the insurance agents that are local to the area. And once you start making those relationships, you continue to make those relationships. Hey, we have this property that's going to be available. And so getting that communication out there that we are here, we are the provider for furnished temporary accommodations for distressed families in the area. We had families leave Louisiana during the past hurricane and come to our area in Georgia to escape that. Families are visiting for weddings. Families are visiting for funerals. They're coming to the area and they need a place to stay. And so we can accommodate, say, a whole wedding party, so to speak. Families are traveling for relocation purposes. So Atlanta is a hotbed. And so where we are in Peachtree City, we're about 30 minutes south of Atlanta. And so if an executive, somebody wants to move to the area, they're going to try out and see, which neighborhoods they want. They tend to, select our property because it is well designed for that executive individual. And the other big thing that we're seeing is individuals are selling their homes a little bit faster than they can get into the next home. And so they need our place kind of like a gap in between, all of their things are in storage. They just need a place for 30 days or 60 days while they get this other home closed on. And so we're kind of a great in-between gap. And those are some of the use cases for the neighborhood properties that we have. And so my rule of thumb is this: if you are 30 minutes away from a hotel, a university, a hospital, you can be a short-term rental. There's travel happening in that area. We have professors coming, we have doctors, nurses, all of those folks as well.
Well, real quick, I was gonna applaud you on a strategy that you're doing that I think is phenomenal in this space, which is very, very. There's a lot of people doing short-term rentals, but you've niched out, whatever the hell the word is, something that's really cool. But I do have a quick question on the insurance rentals. Like, it's kind of a two-part. Do they pay more, insurance companies, than you might be able to get on the market? One, and two, what's the mix? Like, is it 80% insurance? Is it like, it's sort of like here and there? Like, what's the mix of insurance for those neighborhood properties paying, like out of a 30-day month, how many of those days on a property are paid by insurance?
That's a great question, because a lot of times when insurance comes into the mix, Jamie, that renovations are going to take months.
If not years, sometimes. Yeah.
So typically my shortest insurance stay is a 30-day stay, but if they secure the property, it's anywhere from three months. My longest has been 9 months. Okay.
And do they pay you your rate, or do they have I know the insurance has a certain amount they pay per day per the policy, but are you able to get within that your normal rate, or do you have to discount it significantly? What does that look like?
That's a great question. And so I have like my little formula that I use. And here's what my understanding, and I'm about to drop some gems. I'm going to give you the secret sauce right here,
Uh-oh.
Jamie.
Hit me.
You heard it here first. When you have a really good insurance policy, your short-term rental housing allotment is approximately 25% of the property value.
Annually,
So,
or for what period of time? 25% of the property value for. So if you have a $100,000 house, you have a $25,000 short-term rental allotment, let's say, right? For what, just period, that amount
per claim.
per claim. Okay.
And that needs to last about 12 months.
Got it.
And
Okay.
so when the insurance reaches out to me and the individual calls, oh my goodness, my big $750,000 house. When they say that, I start saying, oh my goodness, I can't believe I start to do the math.
I'm so sorry for you. Let me get my calculator out. Wow.
And so I back into it like that. So I'm not going to, I'm not going to charge you the whole amount. I stretch it out over a year. I take into consideration you have 3 animals. Okay. Everybody's got 3 animals. I call up my local, I'm giving you this is my course I'm giving you right now. I call up my local boarding shelter. How much do you board 3 dogs for? This size. I add that. And then I can and of course, insurance, they want to kind of lowball,
Sure.
and I will reduce because it's a longer term stay, but they're not lowballing me. So for instance, if I'm expecting 11,000 a month for a property, I will get around 8,000 a month for a property. And these are homes that are long-term rentals at like 2,500 a month unfurnished.
So yeah, I mean, look, I come from the insurance world. There are bad faith laws in place. To your point about lowballing, as a first party client, meaning the person who purchased the policy, if they have a benefit that pays up to 25% of the value of their home in short-term rental allowance for a year, let's say, or if that's supposed to last a year, I mean, they can't refuse to pay whatever the amount is. That's bad faith. That's illegal for an insurance company to do. So you are in a major position of power by knowing that fact. I mean, if that's one piece of your course, we'll learn about the course in a little bit. There's a lot more to that people could benefit from. So we'll tease that for right now. What I love about your strategy is it's very like blue ocean. Have you ever heard of blue ocean strategy? Like red versus blue, right?
This fighting with the others now.
Right. The idea, for those that don't know, red ocean would be, there's blood in the water. So everybody's doing the same thing. All the sharks are eating the same food. You find your way to blue ocean, which is clear and clean. Like you said, you do sleep 16. And I know this, I've looked for this. It takes your 187 options in a little neighborhood down to 1. Like, you're the only one. So to find that niche in the sea, the red ocean of Airbnb is brilliant. So kudos to you. Was that intentional, or was that just something like you kind of stumbled upon? Like, oh, actually, there's a whole market here of big people, or big families that want to rent.
I am so analytical. And so I will say that I spent a lot of time like looking at the numbers. Well, if I did a 3-bedroom, what are my margins? If I do a 4-bedroom, what are my margins? And then I realized 5-bedroom, 6-bedroom, oh my gosh, holy smokes. Like, not even a proportional type of increase, just completely blew the others out of the water. And so I just kind of stayed laser focused on those units, because as a busy professional, Jamie, I really felt as though I need to make this work. I need to get the best bang for my buck. I can't fiddle around. Look, I drove 3 hours to go and look at this $16,000 property from a wholesaler. I got there. I was so scared. And so I just said, no, I can't. I need to not create another job for myself, so to speak. Sure. I need to create something that is going to accelerate our path to financial freedom. And those numbers made the most sense to me. And we got laser focused on those types of properties.
No, that's great. And that's a great segue, because I wanted to ask you that part next. There's a few other topics I want to dive into, but you're a doctor. What's your practice, first of all? What do you practice?
I'm a doctor of pharmacy, so I'm a pharmacist by training.
Yeah, and I know you had a moment. It sounds like at one point, a pivotal moment, being in your pharmacy, kind of a potentially tragic event that happened to you that probably got you on this path. You want to share that? Like what started you saying, I'm not going to be kind of like, tied to how much money a corporation makes with my life here. Can you share that story a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So one night we actually had a thief come in looking for Oxy and
Mm.
jumped into the drive-through window and held our store at gunpoint. And so, talk about pivot. I have goosebumps right now just thinking about it. Talk about a pivotal moment. At that point, I was still fighting against burnout because healthcare burnout is a real thing, especially in this economy with COVID economy.
Sure.
But at that point, I was already battling burnout. And then I had to take a step back and think to myself, so if in fact, the worst had happened, maybe my family would have received a little card. I'm sorry for your loss. Maybe they'll get a plant, of some sort. Maybe not, right? Maybe not, because they just needed to fill the next shift. And so that was when I realized I got to get out of here. And my husband was 1,000% with me on that. He had been, with me because that environment, and thank God we, transitioned to a whole different environment. I love what I do now in terms of working in the hospital in an IT setting. But that environment really brought out a whole different personality in me. I did love the patients that I served, but it was more towards the corporate numbers, the corporate numbers, the corporate numbers. And at the end of the day, are you appreciated? At the end of the day, are you valued as an individual who has goals, dreams, and hobbies and aspirations? And so for me, that was life changing. And I started to evaluate my life and say, you know what, I'm not going out like this. Not like this, not like this. And so we transitioned to another segment altogether.
Yeah. So it sounds like left the pharmacy and went into a hospital setting, an IT department, like you had mentioned. But at the same time, you built a significant business here with 18 rentals. We all know the story of cash flow with Airbnb. I mean, it's just the best right now. I can't think of in the real estate space a better cash flow vehicle. And on top of that, you're getting appreciation in these markets, especially that you're investing in, coastal destination markets. I mean, the values of these properties are going up as you acquire them. So it builds across all of those benefits of real estate, depreciation, all of that stuff, right? But the cash flow piece is the sexy piece. It's the thing that's really driving it. You said you like what you do. I get it. But what keeps you there? What keeps you employed versus maybe taking a step out and diving deeper into this business full time?
Ooh, that's a good one, Jamie. I think it deals with an identity crisis. I think it deals with fear. I think it deals with a number of things. So we're getting into the psychology of it.
Yeah.
So for me, and I speak with other healthcare professionals. A gal earlier this week mentioned to me that she almost rage quit, her job a couple times last month. And so for me, I think it's the identity, you go to school for 8 years, you don't just quit. Who are you? And so I have some work to do.
You know,
and
it's
to
no, it's
do.
great. What does your husband do, if you don't mind me asking?
He's a psychotherapist, but he has transitioned more so into the real estate professional side as well.
Yep.
And so he works with at-risk youth in the Atlanta public school system. So he's seen some of the worst situations with
Imagine.
children. And
Yeah.
so that's really a tough gig as well. And so he's reduced it down to part-time some, and then he is doing more and more of the real estate. But we're looking for him to retire sooner than later from that and then focusing 100% on the real estate.
It's interesting to me. I talked to a lot of people about this. We talked before we were recording about my story, leaving the job, all of that stuff. There was one frame shift for me in thinking, and it was sort of a future projection, a future version of me projecting back, right? So it was, to your point, a lot of identity in, I developed this career and I've got equity that's unvested still, that, all the family, kids, health insurance, all these things that were like in my mind on top of identity as an issue, right? Like I am an executive. That's what I built myself. I grinded it out. I traveled a bunch. I did everything, just tore myself apart to get to that level. How can I walk from it? Right. But I reflected on, I'm 43. I look back at 25-year-old me with this sort of like, you were 25. What were you doing? Like, you could have done anything, right? Anything with life. Now 43, wife, kids, a mortgage, some investment. Like, I can't just, but then I thought, like, what would 85-year-old me say to 43-year-old me, right? Like, dude, you're 43, right? Like, you got kids, you think you have complications. I've got psoriasis and I'm about to die, right? Like, that's complication or whatever. I hope that's not me at 85, but you get my point, right? Life is finite. And I am the only one that knows 85-year-old me. Nobody else knows that person. So I know exactly what 85-year-old me says to me today. I know exactly what he says. That was pivotal for me. Like, what is this identity? And the other piece that was more recent for me as I navigate this world now of post W-2 and trying to figure out, when I take something on, is it because of scarcity and this feeling of like, I need to earn, and, like this conditioning of having to earn. But if tomorrow, God forbid, somebody said your wife is sick and she's not going to make it, if that happened, I know that's really dark, but if that happened, I know exactly what I would put down. I know exactly what I would stop doing. But why do I need that? If I know right now, if somebody told me my wife is going to die, what I would stop doing, why do I need to wait for her to be in that situation to do it? Like, it just means to me that that's what exactly I need to do right now. So I'll leave that with you. That might be something for you to think about. Yeah, I get it. Identity. I mean, you're a doctor. That's a major, like, societally and socially, that's like the top of the heap. But you die tomorrow. Like, it could be gone tomorrow. Who gives a shit about your doctor status at that point? That's kind of my take on it. So that's not like go quit. I'm not that guy that's like, yeah, you should just throw caution to the wind. But I have a feeling, and actually one other piece, that the evidence of what you've done, I think, serves the success, the likely success you'll experience post job. And what I mean by that is, everything that you've done up to this point has been significant. You're a doctor. That's not an insignificant thing to do. You paid off a bunch of debt. You scaled a business. Like, you're successful with everything you do. That's evidence. So whatever you decide to do next, evidentiary wise, is likely to be even bigger and better than what you're doing now. So I think that the fact that you're a doctor actually serves the entrepreneurial version of you more than it is like an identity thing that you're letting go of, if that makes any sense. My free advice, I don't know if it helps at all, but this is a topic of passion for me. So I appreciate you talking through it.
Absolutely, it does. And Jamie, I cyber stalk you. You are a silent mentor of mine. So for you to speak that into me, that means more than you could ever imagine. So I thank you so much for that. And I received that, and just, I so appreciate that. You're giving me food. I've got chills right now, because it makes sense. And what you're saying is, it's stuff that I know, right?
Of course.
But the framing of it, it's like,
yeah. No, I get it. Look, like, that's the thing I've allowed myself to be post W-2, is aligned with what my gifts and purpose are. I would not have admitted a year ago or said about myself, because of hubris or humility or whatever, that, hey, you're supposed to inspire and help people live their best life. That's but I feel that way. So when this topic comes up, and thank you for saying that about being a silent mentor, that means a lot to me. But when this topic comes up, I get such a thing in me about, not like everyone quit their job. Some people love what they do. Some people, like the CEO of my old company, she is awesome at that. And she loves being it and doing it. Like, do that, right? I would never tell her quit her job, right? But at the same time, there's a lot of us that have something else they want to do with their lives, whether it's in a job, out of a job, in life, travel, whatever it might be, that we don't do for fear of something that's just not real. It's just not real. And anyway, and thank you, because, silent or not, like, this stuff is unbelievable to me. You're talking about mentorship. You're giving me way more value than I'm sure I've ever even dreamed of giving you. So I appreciate you talking through this. This is incredible. All right. So you're a doctor. You've got this job. You're building the short-term rental business. Now you're delving into the world of entertainment. And I know there's only so much you could share here. So under NDA with a certain network / company, but what can you share? What will you share? We were talking about it before. I'm going to let you navigate this to the ability that you're to your ability, what you're allowed to at this point. And then I'm sure later we'll learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. So this this was an incredible experience. So needless to say, this year has been busy. So we were approached by a consultant firm that does a casting for TV shows around, I want to say April or May of this year. And so there is a new TV show, and we're being featured on one of the episodes. This is going to launch early next year. Show name is to be determined. I'm under NDA for that. But what occurred was one of our properties, which was a long-term rental, we purchased it, we decked it out in a suburban area of Georgia. This is a property that we used to host insurance families as well as executives that are traveling to the area. You know, Georgia is now the Hollywood of the South, is what we call it sometimes, or they call it Yollywood, right? And so we're in that neighborhood where we're not too far from where the studios are. Well, this is a property that one of the data tools that are utilized in order to that we utilize in order to measure the profitability for a property called AirDNA. AirDNA reached out with this casting company, and I think they saw what this property was doing. So this was a long-term rental generating $1,800 a month. When we furnished it, set it up as a short-term rental, we were generating anywhere from $15,000 to $28,000 a month on that property. And so and that's what I'm like, I can't look back. I can't look back. So you can't unsee those numbers. And they reached out to us. And so the TV shows featuring that property. And so more to come on that.
Yeah.
We'll be on Netflix. I can say that part, but
I was
I
going to
can't
ask you. Yeah.
more about that, which is incredible. And so this is not something that was within my vision board or my scope or my one sheet or any of that. It's like, you know, when opportunity knocks, it's like, wow, what an incredible opportunity. And so I look forward to that airing in 2022.
Can you talk about that for a quick? That's congrats first off. So we're with a budding star here. So this is we got you here first before you blow up too much. But why say yes to it if it's not on your vision board or not on your one sheet or anything like that? Why say yes to it? I'm kind of curious what your decision was on that.
Absolutely. So I find that sometimes when I allow myself to be a little bit more uncomfortable is when I grow. So it's in the comfort zone. For the last few years, you know, and going back to what you're mentoring me on, Jamie, a little bit earlier, I'm comfortable, right? I'm comfortable. When you're comfortable at your W-2, you're comfortable. But the whole time I'm like, eh. So I'm like uncomfortable in my comfort zone. Does that make sense? I'm
Does.
completely uncomfortable in my comfort zone. So this was completely out of my comfort zone. And it felt like, wow, this is something that is an opportunity for me to grow into. This is something like Netflix per se wasn't on my vision board, but having the ability to impact, and that is my vision, is how do I impact over 1 million women's financial literacy so that they can have the freedom to say yes to the projects and the relationships and the whatever they want to say yes to and no to everything else. How do I impact their financial literacy? Because that was my vision, that was my goal. And I think Netflix is a good way to impact that if you know, they have that reach. So there was alignment in the fact that they do have that reach. And so maybe someone will watch and will say, well, she can do that. If she can do that, I can do it too. And so that's why I said yes.
I love it, and you've got an amazing communication skill ability. I mean, you're very natural and flowing in your communication. So I mean, when you said that, it's like, yeah, I could see this. I mean, I could see you've got that quality about you where you know you can project out your message really really well. I think so. I'm looking forward to hearing about the show. We'll all look forward to it. We'll post it up once it's ready to go. What's the timeline before you're able to start talking about this? Do you know?
I don't know yet. They're still hashing out quite a bit of these things take forever. You know, getting a little glimpse behind the scene. It's fun, but it's a little painful as well.
Sure.
And it takes a lot of time to, you know, get it off the I guess, the docket, so to speak.
Very cool. Yeah, you got some Hollywood types in the women's tribe, though, right? Tamar, she's got some Hollywood background. Lenore Moore, I think, comes from that space as well. So maybe a couple people with elbows they can rub with somebody that they know out there to get this thing moving for you. Who knows?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? On here, I'm like cool as molasses, but when I'm with the tribe, I'm like, ladies, they're asking, help, and so they all chime in, they all provide support, they all provide, their insights. And so it's just an incredible tribe of women for sure.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right, let's do we only have a few minutes left. I want to kind of lightning round the one sheet stuff, and then we'll end with a question from the GoBundance card game. But I do want to also talk about your course. So let's do this. We've talked horizontal income. You mentioned from a family perspective, there's you, your husband. Are there kids? Is it just the two of you right now? What does that look like?
Yeah, we have a high schooler and an elementary schooler. So we do have kids.
Wow. What are the like boy, girl, girl, boy, boy, boy? Two boys.
Yeah.
Another boy family. That's us as well. That's very cool. Are they getting into this, the older one especially, at all, or no? In the real estate short-term rental game, or are they like, you do that?
Well, the older one, yeah, he a year ago, he says, Mom, I would like an apartment so that I can rent it out so that I can make money. I was like, okay, all right, let's see how we can set you up. And so he does have one arbitrage unit.
Good for him. How old?
He's 15.
Wow. So he has his own right now at 15 business.
Yes, he does. He asked for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible.
It's incredible because I didn't realize he knew about it. I talk about it. He ignores me because mama doesn't know anything. And then he just wakes up one day. I was like, what? You've been listening. So I think that's incredible.
Amazing how much they do, even I guess at that age. Mine are younger, so that's good advice for me as they age. They're still listening. All right. How about contribution wise? You mentioned about helping women with financial literacy. Is that where you spend most of your time, money, energy, or is there something else that you have some passion for?
Yeah, so most of my time is in that literacy space. So I do a lot of talks with RIAs. I do a lot of mentorships and coaching pro bono at the local RIA. Money, we do contribute to our church, our tithe. That's really, really important to us. We do need to beef that up a little bit and get a little bit more organized with that, to be honest. And we also contribute to some causes dealing with Haiti. I do have some family back there, a couple of students that we support that are in med school, actually, and law school, trying to make their way. And so we do pay tuition for some students in Haiti. And the student tuition is very cost effective. So it's not anything to brag about, but I'm passionate about education still. And so that's where we contribute the vast majority of our time and our revenue is on those things.
No, that's amazing. It's such a beautiful place. The whole island, Hispaniola, such a beautiful place. And it's so sad to see, like Haiti especially I think the earthquake from, God, how long ago was that now? I think it's still impacting Port-au-Prince right?
It is. Yeah.
Crazy, sad and crazy, but good for you that you're so involved and helping out. How about your GoPod? What are you currently talking about? Just kind of give me the dynamics of your GoPod. What does that look like?
Well, that's a great question. I'm actually jumping back into another one. Our last GoPod, we kind of lost touch over this summer. And with everything that I had going on, I hadn't been able to reconnect. But the last things we were talking about were relative really to each other's superpowers and area of expertise. So Annalie was in my GoPod. Elle, she's a mortgage broker in my GoPod. So kind of sharing a little bit of the expertise that we have and managing family dynamics with it and finding that ease and finding that flow, because we would all come in sometimes, it's like, oh my gosh, everything's just so on fire. And so it's like, okay, how do we find those moments, or how do we ask for help when we need it, and how do we leverage the help of others? And that was the biggest challenge for us. So I know some of us were looking for virtual assistants to help chip in and take some of those things off of our table. Annalie was telling us a little bit about her chef and things like that, that she, I mean, just we're looking at life hacks on how to kind of live a little bit more in alignment, in flow, with a little bit more ease, because if we take a step back, we can probably do it, but it's letting go of some control, right? Well, will they do it the way I want them to do it? And so investing that time into an individual to really get them up to par so that they can, take it and run with it, make their mistakes, we take corrective. So Annalie was really awesome with giving us some pointers on that as well.
Love it. That's great. That's great. The pod thing, I think it's good for people to hear. Like, they don't always just like take off, right? I mean, some do. They have their moments, their seasons. They kind of, some die down. You jump into another pod, but it's the engagement and community that really matters in that sense. How about your next adventure? What's the next thing that you're excited about?
Really growing my mentorship and growing the coaching business, because that has been really the most alignment that I've felt in years. Just helping others to succeed, helping others to navigate, to figure out, what are the bottlenecks? What are the ways in which they want to live their lives in authenticity? When it comes to whether it's a hobby, it's a career, it's a goal. And so the coaching and mentorship has been really huge for me. And so I'm looking to really grow that, onboard more students, onboard coaching with coaches within our coaching, and just kind of work in that world. So in January, we're really going to go full on out. Yeah. And just continue to grow it that way.
Well, let's talk about that. So you have a course. Do you have a name for the course? How can people find it? Give us some detail on what you're working on there.
Yeah, so it's called Luxury Short-Term Rental Academy is a course. And so if you look on my website, shorttermgems.com, Short-Term Gems is the name of the business. So shorttermgems.com, you'll have access to the Facebook group, and that's where I announce enrollment for the course. And so, yep, there's a free Facebook group. Definitely check us out. And we're talking about all things luxury short-term rentals. And so that's pretty much where to find me. I'm also on Insta as well.
Now, is the course, do you go through the course to get to the coaching, or is the coaching something separate and distinct? What does the coaching look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the course has a group coaching component to it. And so you go through the course, and then you get a weekly group coaching as well with a group. And so we do have a premium level if you need one-on-one coaching as well.
Excellent. All right, great. Now we'll drop all the links in the show notes and go from there. So, wow. All right, let's wrap this. There's so much here. I've got a lot of notes here. Let's wrap this with a question from the GoBundance card game. And the question is, when did you not speak up when you really know you should have?
Ooh, I would say it was in my early days in the pharmacy, when we were being held to a standard that was completely unreasonable. And so instead of me speaking up, I thought, okay, we're going to figure this out. We're going to make it happen. The team had already been completely overwhelmed, completely burnt out. But I was at a point, and it was during our getting out of debt journey, where I was doing it more so, I'll say, for the money. I needed my job. I needed this. And so that is something that to this day that I regret. But I quickly realized, even in that environment, that wasn't me and that wasn't for me. And so within that year, I remember having the opportunity to speak out, and boy, did I speak out, and boy, did I ruffle some feathers. I ruffled a lot of feathers. And so I became sort of the advocate for those who wouldn't be able to speak for themselves. But it didn't start out that way, right? So I was that scared little girl who was very much so into self-preservation, and just, I was completely unhappy, completely out of alignment. And so therefore I said, you know what? No, never again. And so even to this day, I know this week I said something that ruffled some feathers. So I may need to go back and give some clarification, but I'm always ruffling feathers, and I'm okay with it, because at the end of the day, I need to be proud of myself. If speaking out leads to me being ashamed of myself, then I won't do it, because it might not be the right thing to do. But if my silence causes me to be ashamed of myself, that's how I evaluate whether to say something or not. And so that really means a lot to me. I love that question, but I want to speak out more and more, especially for those who cannot speak for themselves.
Incredible. Rachel Gainsbrugh, very, very inspiring, informative, content rich, incredible story. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for all you've given me today, all you've given us today. And I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Jamie. I so appreciate you having me on this show. And I look forward to us continuing the connection, continuing the conversation.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be looking up the Luxury Short-Term Rental Academy here, I think, shortly. So thank you for that. Thanks for that gift. And we'll talk soon. Thanks again.